Hi guys. If you can see me and hear me, can you just put a comment down in the comment section? I can see someone's joined in, but I don't actually know who's joined in. I'm actually kind of starting this quite early anyway. So we'll just wait until it's actually 2. Can you guys see me and hear me okay? Just leave me a comment in the comment section if you can. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Mary. Brilliant, brilliant. That's great. That's great. Just needed to know that people could see and hear me correctly. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Oops, not a great start. My mouse just actually fell. But hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It is so great to finally kind of be here live. This is my first live, by the way, so this is a little intimidating for me to say the least. But I'm really excited to be here to just kind of chat with you guys. So, first of all, I think I really want to take the opportunity to just kind of thank you guys, thank each and every single one of you guys that have, taken the time to like, engage, comment, subscribe. I just want to really just kind of thank you guys so much. I mean, it's just amazing. So Thank you so much. It really, really means a lot. You know, so that's the first thing, just a quick, subscriber appreciation. And even if you're not subscribed, if you have engaged with my content in any meaningful way, thank you so much. So nice to see you, Extreme Guys. Hi, hi, Mary. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining in. So basically, to start with, I started this live stream really because I just wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of come on, talk about kind of what your concerns are, obviously, following the new prime minister announcement. I know you guys must have a lot of concerns. I know I certainly do, but we'll get into that later. Um, if you've been following UK immigration quite closely, then you know that there have actually been a lot of changes that have been happening in recent weeks, some of which are very, very concerning to a lot of people, including, of course, Swerveman planning on abolishing the post-study work visa, amongst, separate other things. Now, the irony of this is when Suella Braverman actually handed in her notice, a lot of people were of the opinion that, oh, this is good news. And it's ironic because when she handed in her notice, I remember actually very clearly putting out a video shortly after that announcement. And I was quite clear in that video that this is not good news and it's not bad news, and for reasons being, which we'll go on to. But basically, the fact that she resigned was not good news, and neither was it bad news. And lo and behold, a week later, guess who's back? It's Suella Braverman. So, and she's back in exactly the same role that we were all scared of her actually being in. So, I think that's definitely a concerning factor. But what does this actually mean, for UK immigration? What does this mean in terms of, the policy and, the future changes that are likely to happen? I think it could mean so many different things. First of all, we have to consider that Braverman and Sunak are both conservatives, and the Conservative Party for a long time, their traditional views have always been focused on reducing immigration to the point where, they could, if they had the choice, they would completely close borders to migrants. So we can't forget this key aspect. It's an aspect that's not going anywhere. However, I would say that because of the economic climate that we're in, the UK has spent quite a lot, on the COVID pandemic. They're in a lot of debt. They can't afford to borrow any more money. It might possibly leave them in the situation where they have no choice than to actually kind of start to relax the rules on UK immigration, which fingers crossed they will. That's the hopeful direction of where I think things will go. It's a matter of time to actually see how far they will take that. I mean, we can't forget that actually it was actually a conservative part. It was actually a conservative person that came up with the health and care worker visa back about 2 years ago now. So there is hope. There is hope. Um, so that's the future is still kind of bleak. I know currently, in terms of UK policy and immigration, they are looking to bring out some changes in terms of they're looking to bring out what their budget is and exactly what Sunak's plan is going to be at some point in November. I believe it's November the 17th or November the 14th, but it is at some point in November. So once that update actually comes live, what I am hoping is to share that with you guys directly on my channel and also share with you what that is likely to mean for you guys, for those who are looking to come into the UK. Because by that time, I think we will have a better clarity and understanding of what exactly they intend to do. So that takes me on to, sorry if you see me looking down, I'm literally just looking at the agenda on my phone. Okay. So that then takes on to, what does this mean for those who need to make decisions on whether they want to come to work in the UK or study in the UK? Because mind you, one of the first videos that I actually published on UK immigration a few weeks ago, a lot of people had a lot of concerns, and rightly so. They had a lot of concerns. Should I be coming into the UK? Is this a good time? I've just put in, I just put in a request at a university to study a particular course. Tess, is this a good time? Or what job is best? So many questions I got from that video. And of course, with the immigration changes that just happened recently, I thought it's probably best to just do a live stream and see kind of how many questions I can actually answer to you guys live. I'm not an expert by any means. Obviously, always do your own research. I would always say I do tend to do a lot of research, and that's what I share with you guys on my channel. So, what does this mean for those who want to come to work and study in the UK? I think the first thing I would say is come sooner rather than later. There's never been a better time, as weird as that might sound, but really and truly, there's never been a better. Just come. If you're already in the process of coming, just come. You know, don't delay it any further, because quite frankly, things are changing rapidly. Politics moves very, very fast, and the decision making doesn't slow down either. So do come if you're already in the process of doing that. If you're in the process of making your application, then do make sure you do that. The next thing I would say is to try and make sure that you get all your documents, your certifications, if you're someone that's coming here as a professional and you need to get registered with particular professional bodies, then make sure you have done that in the country that you're in. As much preparation ahead of when you're actually coming into this country will really, really help. The reason I say that is it just means that once you get here, you can actually hit the ground running. So get your references checked, get your cover letter, your CV, all of those things, get it checked and get it sorted before you actually come here, ideally. Now, the next thing I want to say is, even though we are in the situation where Sunak is planning on, changing things with migration and reducing immigrants, I think the steps they're likely to take might be one of two things. They might, rather than completely cut migration levels, is that they will still, in some ways, actually look to relax the immigration rules, definitely, because they need the money. That one, we all know, they definitely need the money. And in addition to that, oh, by the way, if you're just joining this live stream, please do make sure you just welcome yourself in the comment section and let me know where you're from. But basically, if they are serious about policy and actually changing the state of the UK as it is, the current economic state of the UK, they have no choice than to relax immigration. Okay. I think one thing we all have to understand is that immigration and the economic state of any country, including the UK, are very, very interlinked. They are intertwined. You cannot separate them. You really can't. And the state in which the UK economy currently is, they don't have a choice. Okay. So if you think about the news that came out recently where, they wanted to reduce post-study work visa or cut that completely, you will realize that a lot of the university bosses actually put up a huge fight to this. And I think that was also partly why Sunak got, lost her job or resigned in that initial phase of it. But what I'm trying to say is, they will definitely relax immigration rules. How they will do this, we don't really know. What technique they will use to do this, we don't really know. What I'm suspected to think is that they might actually maybe even introduce alternative visa routes, maybe for a short while. They might say, okay, rather than completely cutting numbers drastically, they put maybe an annual cap for the number of migrants that can come in from each and every single country. Perhaps that these are just potential, avenues that they might go, in terms of their planning. Obviously, I'm not an expert on this, but just looking on the horizon and looking at how and where things can go with this, these are just some of the feedback that I thought I want to share with you guys. Also, I think it's important to note that if you're someone who is looking to come here to work and maybe even study, you want to make sure that you are emphasizing your work or your study on those that are high demand. High demand jobs, high demand courses will never ever go out of fashion. And that's in the UK as well. Any country, but definitely in the UK. So even if you look back to the report and the press that has been out recently, one thing you will know is that consistently they were putting a high focus on high skill. So, high skill workers, those who are doing high skilled courses, high skilled degrees, they're going to look to protect that aspect. Why are they going to want to do this? It's very simple why they're going to want to do this, because if you're a high skill worker, if you're someone, say, that, is only in the top 10 or maybe top 20% of earners here in the UK, then automatically it means that they're able to charge more tax revenue on that particular person. So if they have a higher percentage of people who are coming here as high skilled workers, it automatically means more tax revenues for them. And for any UK, for any economy, that's always going to be a positive thing and a step in the right direction. So that's why I'm going to take this time to really re-emphasize to you that do make sure, as part of your preparation, that hi Anuska, do make sure that as part of your preparation, you are looking to, if you're looking to come here and study, try and pick courses that are high demand. So maybe if it's in sciences, engineering, if it's in, if it's a maths topic, if it's technology, there's a whole array. Look on the UK's shortage occupation list. You cannot go far from it. Okay. And same thing if you're looking to come here to work in the UK, please try and do it through the high skilled route, because I think also, apart from that, there are also various alternative visa routes that are available for a lot of people who actually come through the high skill route or come through the entrepreneurial route. There's so many different visa routes that you can actually use to migrate to the UK and eventually get permanent residency. So that leads me on to my third point in terms of consideration for those who are actually looking to come here to work or study, is that you need to actually now be thinking about what are my alternative work or visa routes, right? There are lots of, we're always talking about skilled worker, skilled worker, skilled worker. And I get it, skilled worker is probably one of the most accessible forms of visa routes. But let's not forget that skilled worker route is also very, very competitive. It's very, very, very competitive. It's doable, but it's very, very competitive. So I urge you guys that try and take the time, especially in light of everything that's happening now with the UK, and the policies are changing literally every second. You need to try and start weighing up what your decisions are. So, if they take a negative route or direction on the skilled worker route, you need to be asking yourself, what is my alternative? Are there alternative visa routes that I can use to apply to the UK, if indeed UK is still your top choice on the list? And trust me, there are alternative visa routes. You probably just are not aware of them, but there are alternative visa routes. There's global talent route. There's even a route where you can self-sponsor yourself here in the UK, self-sponsor from your country to come here to the UK. So there are different visa routes for people to consider. So I would definitely say that depending on what your situation is, what occupation you're in, and just generally what your circumstance is, definitely do think about alternative visa routes just in case. It will help you open your options much wider and just give you different alternative options to consider. Okay, so that was going to be my third point on that for those who are looking to either come here to work and or study. So that is kind of it in a in a nutshell. Really, I wanted to take this chance to kind of then just open up the floor to you guys to ask if anyone's got some questions, to throw things out. I did get a couple of questions actually even before today, before the live stream, so I might kind of start with that. If you do have any other questions, do make sure you leave them in the chat box below. I'll be looking at them and just kind of trying to answer where I can. So one question I did get from someone was if someone is coming from overseas, and I think a lot of people might be in this situation. But one question I did get before this live stream was if someone is actually coming from overseas and they didn't have a family or a relative here, how would it work in terms of them actually finding family accommodation? And the reason I'm actually bringing this question out as one of the first to you guys is because I understand that there might actually be quite a few of you who might be in this situation. So this question might be relevant to you guys as well. The first thing you need to do in that instance is you need to rent something, a temporary accommodation. So say like an Airbnb, for instance, you definitely need to rent somewhere temporary in the first instance. And but you have to remember that in terms of getting accommodation here in the UK, you have to make sure that you have your relevant proof of funds that you can provide. So because you need to show whoever you're going to rent that accommodation from that you can actually afford to pay the rent and you can pay the deposit. Because let's not forget, a lot of UK landlords tend to take at least minimum of 6 to 8 weeks deposit at any given time on the accommodation that they let out. You also need to make sure that you have a UK guarantor, so someone who's based in the UK that can basically sign on your behalf if you miss any rental payments. So this is all obviously something else you need to consider. And I think a third point is that it is actually always easier. It is actually always easier for you to do a lot of these things when you're on ground rather than when you are not on ground. So, i.e., when you're already in the UK, because no particular landlord is going to be open to renting or giving family accommodation to a family that's trying to relocate from overseas. It would just make it too tricky for them. They would prefer that it's someone that's here because again, another thing they would need is they would need you to show a valid proof of the UK address where you're currently staying at. So, and you can't do that with an international address. So those are the key areas that you want to look out for and how you want to navigate that. So first, you need to make sure you get temporary accommodation and then make sure that in that time you look for a guarantor. You also want to make sure you have your relevant employment letter because you need to show proof of funds and income of how you're going to pay for the house. And third, you want to make sure that you can provide a valid proof of UK residence address to that. So I can see Seal Jumbo has just joined. Hello, thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Thank you from Nigeria. Oh wow, nice, nice. I'm Nigerian as well. Ooh, Anuska from the Caribbean. Mary from Ghana. Oh wow, nice, nice. Thank you guys so much for joining in. So these are some of the things to consider. I don't know if you guys have any further questions in terms of relocating to the UK or concerns or areas of concerns that you want to ask. You probably do, or you probably don't. You're probably all very confident right now in terms of what plans you want to make and how you want to navigate to the UK. But I'm still available to just kind of stay on here for a bit longer and answer any questions that you guys may have. Okay, so no further questions by the looks of it. Another question I did actually get before this live stream was, how easy will it be to get a job here in the UK if you have a British passport? I would say, even though the economy is very, very competitive, like even as someone who has a British passport, so as someone who's a British citizen, for instance, it is still very competitive and it is still very, very hard to get a job. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush and say that it's not. So I don't think by just merely having a British passport means, oh yeah, hooray, any job I apply for, I should be able to get. It's still very competitive. Though, will it make it easier for employers to consider you if you already have a British passport? Oh, definitely it will. Definitely it will, because a lot of them would much rather a lot of them would much rather prefer not to have to go through the sponsorship route, ideally. Not all the time, but a lot of them would rather do that. What I will also say is that for those who are in the situation where they don't have a British passport or they're not British citizens and they're concerned about the aspect of getting a job here in the UK, look for high skilled job. I will say that, but also try and target companies, big companies, big corporations, ideally. Those guys generally, as a minimum, will always be ready to give visa sponsorship jobs. So look at the size of the organization that you're targeting, particularly maybe if you're someone who's in the professional field, maybe accounting, IT, engineering. Try and target the big firms. If you're in engineering, for instance, a firm like Siemens or ABB or a couple of other engineering type firms would really go a long way, because those firms, by their very virtue, will definitely be open to sponsoring you for your visa sponsorship. And of course, we all know engineering is one of the top high demand jobs here in the UK. So those two in hand will definitely hold you in good stead to getting a job. I can see that we've got Limokani from Zimbabwe. Hi, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but hi, thank you so much for joining in. So Anuska just asked the question, how does it go by getting a job in construction? Construction. So construction is, sorry, I'm just saying another. Okay, so we'll tackle, I think I'm going to call that question out again and read what I think you're asking me. So I think you're asking, how easy is it to get a job in construction? I think. So getting a job in construction, how easy it is or how hard it is, honestly speaking, first of all, you need to check and verify whether okay, you've just said yeah. Okay, great. So first of all, you need to check and verify whether construction is actually on the UK's shortage occupation list. Okay, guys, I always say this and I will keep saying it. Please always make sure you check that as a source of reference, if you're ever unsure. But you need to check if it's on the UK's shortage occupation list. So I can't verify for construction as a field in particular, because there are thousands of roles on the UK's shortage occupation list. As far as using that list goes, the reason I talk about this list a lot, and you hear a lot of other people that talk about immigration talk about shortage occupation list a lot, is that the shortage occupation list is basically the list for which there are more jobs than there are actual people in that country to occupy them. So this is obviously a good thing for a lot of people who are looking to come into the UK. So if I was, if I was in your shoes, if I was coming in from another country, I would basically check that list and see what jobs are there, which ones resonate with me, which ones I can do, and try and make applications for that. Obviously, given that I have the relevant experience and whatnot, because those jobs are going to be easy relatively for me to use as a means to get visa sponsorship here in the UK. If the jobs are not on the shortage occupation list, I'm going to be very honest, it's going to be difficult to try and transfer on visa sponsorship route through the skilled worker route. If it's not on the shortage occupation list, there might be alternative avenues for you to use alternative visa routes to come to migrate to the UK. There might be. It depends on what your occupation is. So I hope I answered that question, Limokani, correctly. Okay, so I'm a material engineer, postgraduate. Okay, so Extreme Guys has just asked a question. I'm a material engineer, postgraduate, having 2 years of experience as a research assistant engineer. That's great, with 6.0 bands LTD, but I couldn't get any job. Material engineering. Well, engineering is definitely a high demand role. I will say you need to keep at it, Extreme. I will definitely have to say that you need to keep applying, keep applying. There's a video I released on my channel a week or so ago that basically shows you a very, very thorough way of tracking down what companies actually offer visa sponsorships, and then showing you a way in which you can basically filter it down to what profession you are in and what companies within that profession actually grant visa sponsorship. So I would definitely go back to that video because I took my time to actually show it to you guys, because I was conscious that there might be people in different professions, and how will they basically field through a lot of information to narrow down what they need to see. So I would start there, but as an engineer, or even as with most of people who are looking for high demand jobs here in the UK, I won't lie, it's very, very competitive. You have to just keep applying. If you can't get a job, there are many factors that could influence that. So first things first is to note that when you're applying for a job and you're doing that from overseas, people usually are not aware, but there's a way you need to kind of format your CV if you're applying for a job here in the UK. So it might be that it's the way and manner in which you're processing that application, and that is not in line with what the UK recruiters look for. So again, I have videos on my channel talking about CV and things like that. I also do actually have a separate service where I help people review their CV. But that aside, you want to make sure that the way in which you're structuring your CV and your cover letter resonates with what the recruiter is looking for, because the UK market is competitive. I think I've said this like twice or three times already, but I will have to say it again. It's very competitive. So, what does this mean as someone who is looking for a job? Not just you're someone who's looking for a job, but you're not even in the UK, you're outside. So, consider just how much more competitive this makes it. So, you need to make sure that your CV and cover letter stands out. Okay, it's top notch, because even me, who is in the UK as a resident, I'm not going to lie to you, my field of profession is working as an accountant, and even with that, I still have to stay on top of the game. I have to make sure that the way in which I basically write out my CV and cover letter stands out, because if it doesn't stand out, a recruiter has literally 2 minutes or maybe even less to review your CV, before they make a decision on whether or not they're going to put you in the pile of call you for interviews and things like that. So you have to really structure it well. By structuring it well, there's a couple of points I can put to that, which includes making sure that you have relevant work experience and qualifications on it. So, what do I mean by relevant? Relevant in the sense of, if you are coming in with engineering skill, but maybe when you were at university, you did customer service experience and maybe a whole bunch of other experience that doesn't quite fit. It depends on each CV, but it doesn't quite fit. Remove that kind of work experience. It has no relevance. Another thing a lot of recruiters also look for is the time in which you've spent in each role. So a lot of recruiters like to see consistency. Unless you're someone who is in university, and as a student and you have those holiday breaks, they typically like to see minimum 6 months work experience or even more as a minimum in each job role. It just shows, this person was in this job role for long enough for them to have gained some experience in that field and for us to consider them. So bear in mind, the format of your CV is very important. The kind of words and language you use to describe your experience is even more important. I call these action words. These are, they're power words. You need to pinpoint it so that when the recruiter is looking at your CV, they're like, yes, this person has done this job that we're looking for, and I need to call this person in for an interview. But I don't want to linger on that, but those are just some pointers I wanted to give to that. So extreme, guys, I hope I have answered that. Yeah, okay. Please, which sites can one? Okay, so Seal Jumbo has asked, please, which sites can one really get visa sponsorship jobs as I'm in Nigeria? Honestly, again, again, I actually have a video on this, but which sites? There are different sites you can use to get visa sponsorship jobs. Seal, they're different, and it doesn't make a difference what country you're applying for. It's the same thing, because sometimes I get people that say, oh, I'm applying from Ghana or I'm applying from Zimbabwe. It's the same thing. It's those sites you need to use. The issue is you have to keep looking. So when you check those sites, maybe go back and check the video. But off the top of my head, a site like LinkedIn, for instance, Total Jobs, there are others, obviously, there are a lot more others. And I tend to share visa sponsorship job opportunities as well from time to time on my channel as well. So obviously look out for that. But there are loads of websites you can use. The issue is, how are a lot of people using these websites? By that, I mean, are you creating email job alerts so that literally the minute those jobs drop, you get an email alert and you're applying to it? Are you chasing up the recruiter after you've made that job application? Are you picking up the phone and saying, hey, I, you know, I applied for this job a week ago or a month ago. What's the progress on this application? It's important to chase up the progress on the application, guys. I can't state it enough. It's very, very important, because it will give you an idea of what feedback you need. It will give you an idea of what mistakes and errors you could have done. Also, when you're applying again, right? When you're applying for different jobs, and you see that you're getting the same feedback every time. So if you've applied for maybe 10 jobs and the feedback has all been the same, you need to be thinking to yourself, what can I do differently? What can I do differently? Is it the way I structured it? Is it that my experience was not good enough? Is it, you always have to have that reiterative process, that what can I do better? UK is competitive. Okay, I will say it again. It's not like Nigeria. Nigeria has its own, issues, and the way it differs from other countries. But in particular, if you're looking to come to the UK is competitive, which means you need to bring your A game. Okay, by that, it means for you to do that, it means you have to be in the spirit of improving. If you've applied for 5 jobs, don't wait until you get 10 no's before you decide to change something. If something is not working and you're doing it again and again and again, you need to change something. So that's the first thing I would say, or rather, the second thing I would say to that: use the website, call and get feedback. You need the feedback. It might sound as if you don't, but you need the feedback. Try and work on your CV, try and work on your cover letter. And if it's the case that maybe you're getting competency questions, because again, I know that with a lot of recruiters, they tend to have this thing where they might ask you quite a few competency questions, maybe at the first stage or even at the second stage, depending on how many stages there are and what stage you get up to. But at some point, you will have to go through competency questions where they're asking you particular roles, particular questions rather, to see how well you match the job description and the role that you're applying for. So spend some time really understanding how you can tailor your work experience to the job description that they are asking you to do. You know, don't just, a lot of people go through this thing like, oh, yeah, I've applied for the job. That's it. I put in the next one. I've applied for the job. No, no, no. You can't do that. So if I was to give the example now of, say, I'm an accountant, so I will give that example because I know the kind of work experience accountants do. If I was to give an example of me working as an accountant and I want to get a job and I'm outside, the kind of things I need to do in terms of thinking about competency questions is I need to be trying to match up my experience. So my experience, maybe working as a management accountant, as a finance manager, handling cash queries back in those days, or treasury queries, or payroll queries. These are the kind of relevant experiences I need to be making sure that I'm including so that it stands out immediately to whoever is looking at my CV or my application, depending on what level of the job role I'm obviously applying for. But when it comes to competency questions, so competencies can be things like your communication skills, your decision making skills, your leadership skills, your strategic thinking skills. These are all key competencies that any job you're going to do in the UK, they will test it at best. So making sure that you already have a template where you have prepared detailed, maybe 2 or 3 examples within each of these competencies will really help. So, say for instance, if you're someone who you've got your job description. So, for every job advert that you actually see, what they tend to do is they tend to include the job description and the job specification in those adverts. So, you want to make sure that if they're asking you things like, for instance, your personal statement and also competency questions, you have to be reading those job description when you're writing those examples to the competencies. Make sure that the examples you're giving is in alignment with the kind of things that they're looking on the job description. But more importantly, when you are answering competency questions, there are 4 steps you need to consider. What's the situation or the task that you were asked to do in that particular example that you're giving? What is the action that you took in that particular example that you're giving? And finally, what was the result or the outcome? So it's something called the STAR approach. This is going to be a game changer for anybody looking for a job here in the UK. Get familiar with those 4 steps, so that's situation, stroke task, action, results. And it takes time to do that. But in all of these 4 steps, the focus is what did you do? Not what did me and my group do? What did you do? Because it is you who is applying for that job. It is you that they're analyzing and they're reviewing. Okay, so those are just, again, more quick fire tips. I'm happy to do a live stream or video Q&A answering some more kind of CV interview style questions to give you some pointers if you guys would like that. If I get enough feedback from that, then it's something I might consider. Let me just go on to the next question because I'm conscious I spent quite a long time on the other question. But so, Sil, I hope that was helpful. Sil Jumbo, okay. Um, Okay, let's see. What do I do to get sponsorship? Okay, so Island Star has asked the question, what do I do to get sponsorship to move to London as a child protection specialist? It's the same. It's the same route as anyone else looking for a job in UK Island Star. You know, you want to make sure that you are looking and applying for jobs that offer visa sponsorship. So first of all, child protection services or child protection specialist, I'm guessing that falls under social services. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that falls under the remit of social services. And if that does, then you should be able to apply through using the health and care worker visa route. So what you need to do is, yeah, okay, so it's the same as social service. All right, okay, brilliant. You're welcome, Extreme Guys. It's the same as social service, right? So social service, child protection. Okay, so from my experience, that kind of role, if you're looking for a job in social service, I would be looking to target councils. Okay, so a lot of public bodies, but in particular councils. I don't know if you know what councils are. I'm not expecting you to because you're not in the UK, but focus on maybe using going directly to a lot of council websites. Hi, Tabraze. Welcome. Go on the council websites directly. The thing with a lot of councils and some government authorities is that sometimes they don't put their job vacant, they won't advertise their job vacancy on a lot of the other broader job websites. By broad job websites, I mean places like Indeed, Total Jobs, etc. They'll just advertise it on their site, but they do tend to use job agencies a lot. Okay, so that's also another angle that you could go through. By the way, if you guys are just using job websites where you're constantly looking for jobs by yourself, definitely one thing you want to make sure that you're including is that you are actually contacting job agencies. Get on the list of job agencies. Trust me, it will change your life. Okay. Get on the list of job agencies. So, job agency recruiters, for instance, Hayes is a good job agency. It depends on which field you're in, but Hayes, Adecco, these are people that tend to do like they recruit across a wide range of different fields. So make sure that you're on their list. By being on their list, I mean register with them. When you register with them, these recruiters work directly with UK, a lot of UK companies. And what that means is when they hire someone, they get a commission, right, from the company that they've given that employee to. So it's in their best interest to hunt for jobs for you. So it will definitely help to ease that pressure of you always having to search for jobs by yourself or, be on the lookout. But you have to do both of them at the same time. So I'm not saying stop manually searching for jobs. What I'm saying is do that, but also make sure you register with different recruitment agencies, in the field of specialism that you're interested in, because it will help. Use LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn. You might not be sure how to do that correctly. Maybe it's a live stream I might have to do to show you guys. It depends. But use LinkedIn. I'm not gonna kid you guys. The minute I learned how to use LinkedIn, I literally get recruiters messaging me with job offers. So use LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn. Use different job agencies. Register with them. Tell them what sort of jobs you're interested in, so that way you don't put all your eggs, in one basket, and it helps to spread out across, a wide range of different avenues. You have the job agency that's, looking out for you, and you are also looking out on the actual job websites for any job opportunities that may come through. So that's that. But if you're looking for a job in social service, check council websites first. So if you want to move to London, what you need to do is Google a lot of, the councils that are in London, depending on which area of London you're looking to move to. So, City and Islington Council, for instance, Havering Borough Council, Enfield Council. So do a research and basically narrow it to what area in London or what zone in London you want to live in, and go on their website and check the job vacancies that they have. Councils are the top spot for social service workers. So if you're looking for a job in social services, councils would be your first best, option. Obviously, still use the websites that I've mentioned, but a lot of councils will generally tend to, advertise for those roles on their website. Another place you want to consider is using a site like NHS Jobs. That's also very good because social services in the UK, social services and social workers tend to work very closely with the health services and also the local authority. So use NHS Jobs because they are also big recruiters for social workers. So I hope that's been helpful, Island Star, in terms of giving you, some tips of where you could start to look. Hopefully it's productive. So let me know. Um, okay, brilliant. Okay. Okay, the name of the agency. Oh, so it was just a random. So Hayes, for instance, or Adecco. But if you're in social services, those agencies might not be for you. So you have to actually find out the agency that is in your area. But I would go by looking for what councils are in the area of London that you want to apply to, and basically go on their website and check for jobs that they have. I think you'll be okay, definitely, with social services and going through the council route. Hi, Otuze, I think. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So sorry if I'm not. Hi, Tess, you're looking good. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, what are my chances of getting a visa for a second master's? I previously did a master's in the UK. Chances are good. I'm not sure why you'd ask that, but unless there were particular conditions or issues, like did you work after that first master, or did you go straight back to your country? But you should be able to come back and study again. But if you're doing so in light of maybe you're asking that in light of all the Sunak stuff and all the immigration updates, and if you are doing so, then make sure you apply for it sooner rather than later. Okay, because again, another thing I wanted to mention to some of you guys is basically when the UK makes a law, or rather, before the UK puts something into law, they will have to discuss and negotiate it. A bill will have to be passed, and there's so many other things that have to happen. So, in a way, even though a lot of people are afraid right now, you still have time. This is still a good time for you to make your decision as to whether you're coming to the UK to work or to study. This is a very, very still a good time. Okay, you're not, so long as you're taking action on doing it now, this is still a very good time. Um, because once the law is passed, what tends to happen if there is a law? Once the law is passed, what tends to happen is by the UK government standard, if any application is then made after the date, or rather on the date or after the date that that new law has come into effect, those are the applications that are affected. So you see why I'm saying that if you're in the position where you want to apply and come now. Because as long as they've not set anything in stone, i.e., they've not passed a law to actually implement, cutting out post-study work visa, for instance, or reducing migrants under particular visa routes, then you still have a good chance. Because any applications that are processed or put through the system before the date that a new law comes into effect will be considered under the old laws, not the new laws. So That's just something I wanted to mention to you guys. If you want to bear that in mind, that might help you make your decision as to how quickly or how soon you decide to make your applications. Um, uh, okay, okay. How? Okay, so Anuska's asking, how is council help with the disability child? Okay, so just bear with me, guys. So council help is generally good if you are a resident. I don't know what it's like if you are not a resident. I'm afraid I don't know what it's like. It probably is the case that you might not get help, but don't hold me to that. But generally, if you are a resident, you are able to get help from the council for any kids that are disabled. So there are lots of different ways that you can get help. So, for instance, if you're someone who's already in the UK and maybe you have a kid that is age 2, I don't know how old your child is, but from age 2, if you have a kid that's disabled, then you can get basically free, the equivalent of 15 hours free childcare, where you can send that kid to nursery or to a daycare provider for 15 hours, and it's paid for by the government. So, but some of the benefits and things like that that you get in the UK really does depend heavily on whether or not you are resident or have indefinite leave to remain. So you have to check and verify that. But a lot of it really does heavily depend on whether you have the right to remain. So I think that was that in terms of questions. My battery is running out now, guys. I didn't actually expect to stay this long. But yeah, let's see. Any other questions before my battery officially passes out? No, no. Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. It's been lovely coming on here, guys, to actually chat with you guys. And thank you so much for joining in, for spending your Sunday afternoon on here. It really means a lot. If you guys would like to see more live streams like this, or just kind of generally more kind of Q&A style videos, then let me know. Maybe you can put a comment down on the community tab, or even a comment down here if you'd like to see more video styles like that. I'm definitely looking to implement more Q&A type videos, because I noticed that a lot of you guys tend to have quite a few questions that you want to ask. And I'm sure if you have one question in your head, the chances are there are at least 10 or 20 other people that have that same questions in their head but just haven't asked. So doing kind of Q&As or regular live streams is something I do want to try and implement going forward, because I think it might help you guys. Let me know if it will help you guys, if you want to see more of that. Also, let me know if this has been useful by just making sure you like this video, comment down below, and just share your thoughts on what else you'd like to see going forward. And if you want another live stream, I'm happy to do that. I'm considering doing a live stream or a Q&A video, depending on which one you guys choose, on answering questions regarding different types of UK visa routes. I don't know when that will be, maybe in 2 weeks' time or in a month's time. I don't know yet. It depends on how much feedback I get on whether people want that or not, and whether they want to see it in the form of a live stream or a Q&A video where you send in your questions beforehand and I basically answer them. So, because coming into the UK, the primary way a lot of people do that, of course, as you know, is through UK visas. But it seems that there are a lot of people who don't know just how many UK visas are out there and the opportunities they can use to actually come into the UK and those routes. And I try as much as possible to share those to you guys. But if you want to know more about all of these things, then definitely let me know down below and follow the channel along. But it's been absolutely awesome, guys. So thank you so much for joining in. I really, really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye, everyone.